It is the middle of February and I'm in Yellowstone National Park to do a little passion project. And if you've been here, you know what a magnificent place it is. But if you haven't been here, then this video is for you rather. Yellowstone is amazing in many, many ways, but for the wildlife photographer, you know, I don't think I can think of a better place in North America for diversity of wildlife. This is a place I photographed grizzly bears, black bears, wolves, foxes, coyotes, osprey, golden eagle, bald eagles. You know, the list goes on and on and on. So, yeah, I thought I would put this little quick video together for those of you who haven't visited the park, but you're thinking about coming here. Coming up next. So, I guess one of the first things you want to decide is when should you come to the park? And each season has its pros and cons. Spring, for example, is good because the park is sort of, coming alive again, if you will. You know, deciduous trees are getting leaves, so there's color. And a lot of animals have their young, sort of into April. So if, for example, you're after the bison having their babies, then April's the time to be here. May's also good because you start seeing the bears coming out of their dens and so forth. So spring is pretty good for a number of reasons. Summer in the park, on the other hand, is, I have to be honest, it's my least favorite time to be here because it's just really busy and it's hard to get anywhere, really. It takes longer and just because of the volume of people here. And the other thing is your days are, they're quite long, right? Because sunrise is early, sunset is late. In between, you gotta eat, you gotta charge batteries, download your files. So, I'm gonna stop walking because I'm carrying a little bit of gear, but also we're at altitude and there's a bit of fresh snow. Anyway, so sorry about that. Summer is, summer is kind of challenging, but I mean, hey, if that's the time you can go, come here. I mean, it's still, it's still Yellowstone. But just a caveat on a summer visit. Fall in the park is also pretty good because, the trees are changing color. So that provides really good opportunities for wildlife photography. Animals are getting ready for winter. And also there are, relatively speaking, fewer visitors in the park. So, fall. And if you're after things like the elk rut, that's the time, that's the time to be here. But by far, my favorite time to be here is now, and that's, it's winter. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on winter because with winter comes, I think there's a few different circumstances that you need to be aware of. Anyway, winter is, it can be tough because there's obviously less food around for a lot of the animals. And the temperatures can get really, really cold. Now, if you come here in the winter and let's say you're in a car, you're on your own, you rented a car, you drove from home, I want to mention, I want to mention a couple of things. In terms of preparing your vehicle, assume you're going to get stuck and prepare your vehicle accordingly. Now, you're probably not going to get stuck. But this is not a place where you want to take chances. So what I mean by that is have a shovel, have chains, have water, have food, clothes, so forth. The other thing I like to do is when I'm in the park, I like to make sure that I have at least half a tank of gas. Just because if you happen to slide off the road and nobody's around, you want to be able to stay warm. Or if there is an accident, in the winter, you're only on one road, and that's the road between Gardner and Cook City because Everything else is closed to self-drive. So just prepare your car. Sorry, this is just a really beautiful spot. I don't know if I can show you because I can't get quite wide enough. But anyway, if you're here in winter, yeah, just prepare your car under the assumption that you're going to get stuck somewhere. Even though, as I said, you probably won't. But it's just a good way to be in the park so you can be a bit self-sufficient. Let's talk accommodation for a minute. If you come when the park is fully open, that is to say all roads are open, there are, well, there's quite a few places you can stay. West Yellowstone, Gardner, Cook City, down south near the, in the Tetons or close to that. If however you come in the winter when, as mentioned before, there's only one road open, that's the road between Gardner and Cook City, you want to stay in one of those two places, Gardner or Cook City, because, well, unless you're on an interior tour or snow coach tour, those are really the only places you can stay. This morning it was minus 29. Now it's a balmy minus 17. Anyhow, you may also be wondering if you should take the snow coach into the interior of the park. I'm going to give you the pros and cons of doing that because I'm kind of torn on whether or not to recommend it. Anyway, the good thing about it is that you get to see obviously parts of the park that you don't get to see here. So there's geysers, you might be able to get to the Hayden Valley, which is, well, beautiful. And also if let's say that you're 80% wildlife photographer and 20% landscape photographer, it might also be well worth your time. The flip side of that is if you do go in there, you're going to be on one of these snow coaches and they're quite slow. You sit in kind of like a van environment with other folks, and if you go on a wildlife specific outing, well then you'll probably be okay, but sometimes you may be in with other folks who aren't necessarily wildlife photographers, and it get a little frustrating because you may end up spending more time than you want at a particular site that's not wildlife oriented. I'd say in terms of animals, you're going to see most likely in the interior what you see out here. There may be a few exceptions, but none that sort of pops to mind in a, I guess, dare I say, a significant way. So how do you decide? And I think probably the best way to decide is based on the amount of time that you have in the park. So this trip I'm here for 10 days, so I could have done it. I didn't do it just because I've done it once and it wasn't my cup of tea. But, if you're here for the first time, it might be worth it. If, on the other hand, you only have 3 days or so, well, then I would probably hang in the northern range of the park, sort of between Gardner and up to Cook City. So I hope that helps. But the bottom line is, if you have the time to do it, it's probably an experience you should try, and you may like it. But if you don't like it, then you still have time to come and explore this portion of Yellowstone. And let's talk camera gear for a second or two. Long story short, if you have it, bring it. The exception, I suppose, would be, your drone and camera traps. Those aren't allowed in the park. But if you're driving from your home, maybe you want to bring, I guess, at least a drone in case you pass some areas where you can fly it. In terms of your gear, I would say bring your longest lens, your widest lens, 2 camera bodies. If you're in winter, bring extra batteries, because if you're standing outside watching wolves, for example, like I was the other day, and it's cold, your batteries will drain quickly. So bring lots of batteries, bring lots of memory cards, bring a backup drive. You're better to bring it and not need it than obviously need it and not bring it. The other thing I'll just mention for clothes, bring extra clothes. The weather here, man, it changes really, really quickly. In fact, when I drove over to this little canyon, I started in sunshine. I went through snow squalls, and then, I ended up sort of, I guess you can call it in between. But at the moment I have 5 layers up here, and I think 3 layers on my legs, and a pair of snow boots and so forth, and a hat. And you just want to be prepared for a bit of everything, really. Yesterday it was close to freezing. This morning it was minus 11 Celsius. I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit, but it's pretty cold, and particularly your digits will freeze pretty quick. So in terms of camera gear, bring more than you think you need. If you're driving, if you're flying, you got to be careful with the airlines, because they're kind of, I don't know, picky on how much you can bring these days in terms of weight and so forth. So just be mindful of that as well. One thing I just want to mention to you is driving around the park. Now, if you're like me, you're always sort of on the lookout for animals, of course, in a good setting. And it's easy to get, dare I say, distracted when you're driving. So, one, be careful. Pay attention to the road. Now it's winter, there's ice on the road, and some areas don't receive much sun. So really, really do yourself a favor and pay attention when you're driving. Better yet, have somebody else drive. Maybe you're coming here with a family member or fellow photographer. The other thing is, do not stop on the road. So when you see something, it's tempting, because you want to get at minimum your, call it your insurance shots, but just don't stop on the road. If the rangers see you, you're probably in for a very bad time. The thing you need to do is either find a pull in there, or if you can, you need to get all 4 wheels of your vehicle over the white line. The white line is the line that you'll see probably on the right side of the road. So you need to have all 4 vehicles across that line, because if you don't and a ranger comes by, well, you might just be making a involuntary financial donation. So just be really mindful of those 2 things. So don't stop on the road. If you do stop, make sure that you have all 4 tires across that white line. So the other question you may have is, where do you find wildlife in the park? And the answer is pretty much everywhere. Now, certainly if you're after a particular species, there are a few places that may be better than others. So let's say, for example, you're after osprey. Well, osprey will be near a water source, because they dive for fish. If you're after bighorn sheep, well, then you can check the old Yellowstone Road up here in the northern part, or sometimes down at a place called the Confluence, which is just down the road from here. Mountain goats, they're here too, and you'll find them up on the slopes like the one behind me, usually up near Baronet Peak, which is up towards Cook City. That's one place you can find them. Wolves, wolves I've seen pretty much everywhere, from out here down to the Hayden Valley, all the way down into Gardner, and out the old Yellowstone Road out there too. They tend to be far away, so you want to bring a long lens like this monster here, which is a 600 millimeter lens. And if you have extenders, I'd bring those too, because they tend to be far away. Now, that's not to say you won't get any close-up opportunities, but I would say they're more on the rare side. But I'd say bottom line is basically almost anywhere, almost anytime, with a few notable exceptions. So, yeah. So I was driving back to town. I realized I forgot to mention something on accommodation. And that is that there are campgrounds in the park. And this is a popular place, particularly in summer. And campgrounds aren't open all year. So if you're going to come here and camp, I would say make sure you book quite a bit in advance, because, well, they tend to book up, sell out. Anyway, they tend not to be available closer to your arrival dates. So make sure you book your campground well in advance. So there's a quick overview of visiting Yellowstone. Now, I know I went rather fast, and I'm sure some things I've forgotten about or I didn't mention. So if you have any questions, put them down below there in the comments. I'll do my best to get to them and answer them best I can. If there's anything else you want to know about Yellowstone, fire away. I've been here, I don't know, 15, 20 times probably over the years, and I just love it here. And if you haven't been here, it's really hard to put it into words what it's like. You want to be here. If you're a wildlife photographer, I think it's a place you really want to visit. Last thing I'll ask is, sorry to do this, but could you give the video a thumbs up? And hey, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe. Hit the subscribe button down below. Thanks for watching, and yeah, see you later. Thank you.